I come from a very deep religious and conservative family. From my teen years, I was attracted towards male, but I never came out of the closet because my father is homophobic. Also, living as a gay man in my country is not possible. A few years ago, I got married to a really nice woman. Yes, I know what I did was really stupid, and I ruined her life, and I definitely am an a-hole for it. Believe me, I tried to delay my marriage as long as possible, but my sister was not getting married before me, and not to mention, I fear my dad. I think everything will be okay. There are lots of gay men who never came out, but live a peaceful life. At that time, I thought it was a good decision. Also, I was not sure whether I was bi or gay. Things turned out pretty bad after. My marriage was constant fights between me and the wife. She sensed something was not okay with me. One day, I told her the truth. She was sympathetic with me. First, we decided to get a divorce, but my father had a heart attack a few months before, and getting divorced was a really big deal in those days, so I suggested to her to wait for a few months. But one day she left my home and went to her parents. She told them everything, and all hell breaks loose. There was name-calling. Her brother beats me. My own family disowns me. People used to look at me like a criminal, but I never felt any anger towards her. We got divorced, and I gave her pretty much everything I had out of guilt. Also, my parents gave her my inheritance. Overall, the money and property she got was really good. I left that town. My father died after a few months. He couldn't handle that his son is not man enough. I was not allowed to visit him one last time. My brother and mother were extremely pissed at me. My mother thinks I am the reason he died. My ex got married soon after. Today, the only family I have is my dog. I missed everything, weddings, birthdays, everything. I now check on their update via Facebook. I don't like or comment because I fear they will block me. Yesterday, I got a message from my ex. She is asking for some money. Apparently, she gave all the money she got from me to her new husband, and he lost it in his business. I refused. I really can't afford to give her any money. I started everything from scratch, and I don't really have much money. She is now accusing me of ruining her life because she didn't get a great match because she was divorced. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and I'm sorry this happened to you. Just know that your father's death isn't because you're gay. You are man enough. Not the a-hole. Sounds like she ruined your life. You don't owe her anything, but you do owe yourself some grace and kindness in all of this. Not the a-hole. Your ex-wife chose to give everything she had to her new husband. It's not your fault they weren't responsible with the money. Block her, and don't talk to her again. Never give her another dime. You aren't her ATM anymore. Your family sucks. You can't help being you. This is really difficult. You are an a-hole for marrying her. Your parents and family are a-holes for being homophobic. But you are not the a-hole for not helping her out considering your current financial situation. I, 44 male, have a daughter, G, 19 female, who made the spectacularly stupid choice of having a baby. I'm very financially secure. My father gave me $20,000 when I finished high school. It was meant for university, as was the custom in my family, but I invested it instead. I won't go into details, but after a few high-risk investments, I'm now the wealthiest member of my family. I've always done my best to pay it forward and take care of my family if they need help, under one condition. My father had one absolute rule in the house. Always take responsibility for yourself. With my siblings, if I lend them money, they always pay it back. When I was 24, my then-girlfriend and I had G. She was the light of my life, and we raised her to want for nothing. However, we also tried to instill the belief that nothing comes for free. My wealth was not her wealth, and the things we gave her needed to be earned. This has worked with her two younger brothers, but it just wouldn't click with her. The final straw was when she told me, at 18, that she was pregnant and was going to keep the child. I was furious, not because she wanted to have a child, but because she clearly hadn't thought any part of it through. She keeps a minimum wage job because we've told her that if she lives with us, she must be working. But she won't go to school to try and better her life. I did give her $20,000 after high school, but she burned through it in less than a year. I had enough. I told her I've ignored her irresponsible behavior in the past, dismissed it as youthful indiscretion. But I've never been more disappointed in her than I was in that moment. That this was the most monumental stupid thing she's ever done. I berated her for not once considering the child in her dream vision of being a mother. I asked how she expects to provide for the child when she can't even afford a roof over her head. There was a very heated argument, and in the end, I told her I would get her an apartment. It would be paid for 1 year from the birth of her child. And if she hasn't proven herself a capable mother, to make the sacrifices necessary to put that child before herself, I would not only cut her off, but I would take that child and make sure it was raised with the love and support it deserved. Side note, We still don't know who the father is. Sure enough, for the entire year we continually had to support her. Babysitting, groceries, cleaning. My daughter just wasn't getting it. She grew increasingly angry and resentful of us for ruining her life. At the end of the year, I took her to court for custody of my granddaughter, and in the end, the courts ruled in our favor. I told my daughter that until she grew up and started to take responsibility for her life, she was not welcome in my house or anywhere near her child. I then went home and spent the night crying with my wife. I've since received endless hate-filled messages from the family, and my eldest said I'm the a-hole for what I've done. This is a tough one to pass judgment on without knowing you and your family, but I'll give it a go. You come across as greedy, judgmental, a-hole in your writing, and I was originally inclined to say everyone sucks here. However, the courts decided to give you custody of the kid, which made me realize that her ability to parent must be significantly worse than even you let on in this post. If the courts really feel that you are a better parent than the birth mom, then not the a-hole. You're giving that child the best possible future. Not the a-hole, assuming this is true. Courts don't give custody without cause. Your choices were between enabling her to continue to be reliant on you, or cut her off in the hope she sorts herself out. You're right to choose to protect your granddaughter without enabling your daughter. Everyone sucks here, from OP and another thread. We rewarded the effort. She works just fine when she was with us because it was fair exchange. Everything we gave her was earned by meeting fair expectations, so we don't understand why she just is this way. I feel like I failed her. I don't even know where I went wrong. I can tell you why. It's because you tied your love and support for her to whether or not she met expectations. You made your love transactional. It's incredibly toxic and very hard for children who have been emotionally hurt in this way to see their own intrinsic worth. It's especially insidious because it's so hard to recognize. There's no bruises or scars that make it apparent the pain is occurring. Just year after year of being told that love is conditional. I suspect the idea of motherhood was so appealing because she desperately needs someone to just love her unconditionally. She clearly never got that from her parents. That being said, she's now an adult, and it's ultimately her responsibility to buckle down and do the year's worth of therapy it will take to undo the damage you caused. It sounds like your daughter really isn't in a place where she can care for her own daughter, and maybe she can't be trusted, but clearly neither can you. Update. So I showed this post to my wife, and she said it reads cold-hearted, and when explained like this, I sounded like the a-hole, so I'm going to include some more info. 1. As many have pointed out, yes, I'm a stoic man. I don't really show my emotions and never have, but I've never failed to tell my children that I'm both proud of them and love them. The issue has never been a point of contention in our daughter's life, but I acknowledge that that doesn't mean it wasn't. My wife and I are already discussing a plan to approach her with the option of family therapy. 2. The courts did not just hand over custody. It wasn't black and white, nor immediate. In the year after our granddaughter's birth, G signed up for every credit card she could and maxed them all out without making any payments on them. I only found this out after the fact and have since paid off all of them, but her most recent. She spent the money on fast food, expensive toys, designer brand things. None of the transaction history reflected any attempt to care for her daughter. 3. 6 months after her birth, my wife hired a nanny to help take care of our granddaughter so that G could return to work. G ran that nanny and 4 others off. She expected them to be her servants, and they wouldn't tolerate the aggression. Furthermore, she was fired from the job she did have for work refusal, wouldn't return to work, and though my wife helped her find employment numerous times, salaried employment through her friends, our daughter would either quit, be fired, or stop showing up altogether. 4. The courts ordered her to attend parenting class. She refused. They ordered her to speak to a professional to rule out PPD. She refused. 5. Our daughter called us every vile word under the sun and has accused us of stealing her child many times through her text messages, emails, and voicemails. But she has not once actually asked to see her daughter. I can't speak for communications with her brothers, however. 6. I'm terrified of letting her meet her daughter. Right now, she's blaming her mother and I for ruining her life. What will happen if she directs that anger at her daughter? 7. Yes, I absolutely want my daughter to regain custody. Initially, I used the threat of taking her to try and scare her into taking responsibility, to wake her up to the reality that the bank of mom and dad will not support her through her life. It was because of just how bad the situation became in that year that my wife and I ultimately decided we needed to take custody for our granddaughter's sake. But if G can show and prove that she's accepted both her responsibilities as a parent as well as her responsibilities as an adult, then we absolutely will return custody. But right now, that is not an option. 8. My daughter is not homeless. although we've paid for the apartment for another year because we absolutely do not want her to be on the streets. She's refusing to go back there and instead living with her aunt. I don't get along with my immediate blood family. About 10 years ago, I went through a nasty divorce. I briefly stayed with a sis, sharing a room with her oldest stepdaughter, who was in her late teens, and we formed a close bond. I started teaching her photography and helping all 7 of my sis's kids with their homework. About 8 months later, my sis called me a W in front of her kids and kicked me out of the house. I had started dating again. Whole family disowned me. At the time, I understood because I wasn't hiding the fact that this time I wasn't going to let them live my life for me. I was homeless briefly and eventually moved 1,000 miles away. Almost a year later, my sibs went through their kids' social media accounts and blocked me. They both told me they wanted nothing to do with me and to stay out of their lives. A large circle of friends also blocked me. I was confused. I was hurt. I assumed it was because I was living in sin. I didn't find out the whole truth until about 2 years later, when my mom called me and told me my sister had accused me of horrid things. Apparently, my sis caught her month from 18 stepdaughter sneaking out, a year after I left, by the way. Found an S toy after searching her room, and after going through the girl's emails and had seen where she was sending naughty pictures to her boyfriend at the time. I knew nothing about it, but was blamed for it. I set things straight with my mom, said niece had gotten back in touch with me after turning 21, and she also set things straight. My sibs have never apologized, but did start to send me messages after they found out, through our parents, that I was going to have a kid. Suddenly they want a relationship and brush the dirt under the rug and move on. My parents, who also disowned me, suddenly wanted to visit and have made a yearly visit since. They put me back into the will, or at least my kids are, and they pretend everything is fine. They just visited recently, and it was a pretty awful visit, including them telling me that I need to mend fences with my sisters. I've informed them I don't care if I ever see my sisters again. My kids are not going to meet them, and my husband and I have no intention of changing our minds. As a person in the educational field, my sisters could have literally ruined my life with false accusations, and since this is now a pattern, I can't take that chance. Also, I'm having a really hard time with my parents only wanting a relationship with me because of my kids. My mom has hinted at contesting our will, that they are not named guardians obviously, and she thinks that giving gifts means you owe her something. I've always felt like such a disappointment, even though I'm literally their only kid who is able to support herself and family without their help. One sis has 7, the other 5 kids, and they both live on my parents' land. But I'm the black sheep who left and am taking my family to hell. Actually told this. This isn't even half the drama, but I don't have enough space. Not the a-hole. Cut off your parents too. Your life will be a lot less stressful. They betrayed you and have done nothing to make amends. Not the a-hole. Because you have kids, it's the best thing for everybody if you just cut your sibs and parents off completely. If in 20 years your kids and their cousins decide they want to have relationships separate of their parents' problems, that's one thing. But bringing them around these people now is a bad idea. Backstory. My grandpa and grandma were high school sweethearts. She was set to go to college after graduation, but he convinced her to stay in her hometown and marry him instead. Something she regrets to this day. He promised to take care of her, and she'd get to be the stay-at-home mom and housewife. They get married and have 2 kids, my dad and my aunt. He goes to work for a very big multi-conglomerate company. Not saying which one, but chances are you have at least 10 of their products in your house right now. This job involves taking a lot of business trips. You see where I'm going. Around when my dad was in his early teens, my grandma realized that grandpa was being weird, distant. I'm not sure what the final straw was, but she hired a private investigator to investigate him on his next trip. Lo and behold, private investigator saw him and a coworker together at the hotel, checking into the same rooms as husband and wife. I'm not sure how he was able to pass that by his company, but at this point, he had climbed the ranks to a decent managerial position and probably took advantage of their trust in him. They were having an affair on their employer's dime. Big no-no. So private investigator gets photographic evidence and grandma's heart is shattered. She divorced him, of course. It was messy. Grandpa didn't want custody of his own children. He just completely abandoned them to play house with his new toy. After the divorce, he even brought her children, his stepkids, around to paternal family events instead of my dad and aunt. It was really messed up. So during the divorce, and bear with me, my dad told me this story and I'm not sure how exactly legal proceedings went back then. My grandma showed him the evidence she had of his affair. She and her lawyer threatened to send proof to his employer unless he signed the divorce agreement. That basically granted her an insane amount of alimony for the rest of her life, or until she remarried, which she never has. The agreement also covered all legal fees. He was ducked either way, so he signed it. The divorce went through, and then she sent it to his company anyway. He and affair partner were fired. His professional reputation never recovered. He was forced to find an entry-level job in a different industry. He and affair partner are now completely estranged from his family, for a couple of reasons, but their relationship was already strained because of the affair. He is a crappy father, a terrible husband, and an awful person. And because he pays alimony until my grandma is dead, he and his wife can't retire at almost 80. I'm sure if he signed a divorce agreement based specifically on her not sending that info, the agreement would be invalid once she did. This is either fake or your grandfather is an idiot who didn't consult a lawyer. With him being in a managerial position at a big company, it's probably not the latter. I'm sure the sign this or I send the pictures to your company thing was unofficial, since it's essentially blackmail, so it wouldn't actually affect the divorce since he never officially agreed to it. I'm neither a lawyer nor the grandpa, so wouldn't know though. Just a speculation.